Hello, hello? Okay, working. We'll get started. Welcome here to our first meeting of the Canada Club in quite a while. It's good to be in a meeting room. It's good to see most of your faces, or some of your faces anyway. You need a mask on. The police are gonna come around, they said. Yeah. I'm Jim Stucker. I'm the new president. I was not on the board before, although I've been a member of I was a member of the club when it started for a couple of years, and then I dropped out and did other things. Then I came back into the club 2 years ago. The former president and other board members had some trouble with illnesses in their family, so they recruited me, and I didn't run fast enough to get out of it. Since most of you don't know me at all, let me say a little bit. My wife Joan over there ended up running the camera, and I moved to Sun City 20 years ago. We've been here since then. We've been here 20 summers, and 19 years as a homeowner. When we first came, we rented for 6 months before we found a house to buy. And then a few months ago now, in June, we sold our home because prices were so high we couldn't resist. And now we're back as a renter again. I've been in a bunch of clubs here in Sun City. I was an officer in the men's golf club, the men's Niners. I took pictures for almost all the golf clubs at one time or the other. Been on several committees. In the beginning, I was on the promotions and something committee, which took pictures for the news and views in the old days. On that for about 3 years. I was on the bulk cable committee when we first changed over from Time Warner, our original provider, to Verizon. And then in 14 and 15, I was on the strategic planning committee for Sun City. And we worried about how Sun City was evolving, and I personally worried about how the population, all of us, were getting older and older, and how our services were going to continue, and hopefully they would evolve along with us. I did the resident survey 2015, which kind of proved that average age at that time was 75.6. And since then, I don't think we've got any younger. Anyway, so I've been around, I've been here for a while. And other new members, let's see. I need 2 hands here. This is our planning session for the year. We want to introduce the new officers and then get into our activities. Current officers are me, Vice President Gary Pedersen. Gary is out of town tonight. He was here this morning and was at the expo. He was, what was Gary before?
He was the treasurer.
He was treasurer, so he's been on the board for several years.
Yes.
Treasurer Jim Ricketts. Jim here?
Yep.
Hi, Jim. Jim's been around for a long time. Been on the board for a long time, Jim?
No, not on the board.
Okay.
This is his first.
And Secretary David Wall. David held down the fort today at the expo and recruited a whole bunch of new members, several of which at least have shown up tonight.
Great. Welcome.
And we welcome them, yes. Jane has left.
I think she's
And Diane is not here. Alan is here. Alan, our education chairman, is here today. He's gonna talk to you in a little bit. Diane and Betty, through the course of the year, we'll have all these people be talking, and you'll get to know all of them. Camera Club is all about taking pictures. The club's mission is to help people take better pictures, to develop their skills, so that they can come up with technically and aesthetically outstanding photos. To do that, we offer seminars, present speakers, conduct field trips, and organize social events. We'll talk about each of those. Competitions are the essence of our club. They're what it's been about since it started in 2007, and they're what keeps us going. Every other month, we have a competition. We were supposed to have one in October, but the COVID rained it out. But we're getting ginned up now to have one in December. In the competition, images are submitted by the members in clearly defined categories, and they're judged according to clearly defined principles. If we have 3 or 4 competitions during the year, then at the end of the year, the results from all of those are combined, and they tell us who our expert is for the year, who our photographer of the year. These are our heroes from the time the club began in 2007. Jerry is here tonight. Who else is here? Jim Ricketts is here. Anyone else?
Jim Avedon.
Jim Avedon, yes, Jim. Good to see you. You're our first hero, our first expert.
True.
And you're still going strong. That's good to see. Maybe you can do it again this year. I got some photos of the winners from this year, which is Jerry Chantal, Dave Malik, and Doris Kanaka. Come on. Jerry was a 5-time winner, as you might have seen on the previous chart. 8 and 9, 11, 12.
You need the
15.
microphone?
I need the button. There it is. I'm sorry, I'm not accustomed to doing this. Jerry was a 5-time winner, including this year. We got 3 or 4 photos of his. Jerry, you want to tell us what these are?
Sure. This one is all of these pictures.
Can you hear him?
Yes.
All of my photos were taken with a very small camera, not a cell phone, but a 1-inch sensor Sony RX105, I think. All handheld. This one was taken in Chicago, sitting on a bench waiting for a reservation at a restaurant. And I happened to see the symmetry of and the repetition of the buildings. So I just pointed the camera straight up and took the picture. Great. This is a composite, actually. I took the pictures of the dancers indoors at a folklorica show in Mazatlan. And then I put them against the backdrop. The backdrop actually was taken near the gas station on Frank Sinatra and Monterey, toward the mountains. And then I used a program called something Photolog or something like that. It's a waterlog. WATERLOGUE. It's a watercolor type program that gives a watercolor feel to the pictures. And that was taken with the same camera. This was taken in our backyard. I think the category of patterns or something like that. Or texture, that's what it was. And this is a picture of a lawn chair. Again, taken with the same camera. And then this was taken from the John Hancock building, from the 95th floor of the John Hancock building in Chicago, looking down through the window of the observation room.
Wow.
Again, with that same little camera. This camera is actually smaller than a lot of cell phones. It shows you that you don't need, you can have a good, very flexible camera, and you don't necessarily need to have a large sensor to take pictures, especially if you're not making prints. If you're making large prints, then you need a larger sensor. But for projection or looking at it on the screen, you really don't need it.
Well, these are certainly fine photos. Jerry's photos and the other ones I'm going to show were published in the News and Views in the July issue, I believe. So you can see the printed versions of them there. Second place this year was by Dave Malik, and he didn't respond when I asked him for his photos. Third place was Doris Tanaka. Doris here? Don't see her. These are fan palms. Not sure where she took it. This is a gorgeous photo. And this one really wows me. This was out in the desert someplace. It's a 15-second exposure. And it must have been really, really, really dark. Was anyone with her on this trip, or? Well, hopefully she'll come next time and tell us more about it.
Your microphone.
Am I not? There I am. Hopefully Doris will be at a future meeting and she'll be able to tell us about this. I think this is fantastic. And I would love to go on a trip later this year out to somewhere around 29 Palms, I guess it is, and to try to do this. And not in the middle of the night, but at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock when it's completely dark, but still get home before midnight. Something to work on, something to think about. A big part of our activities for the year is classes and workshops. Whoops, come on. What we've got going now is photo editing, and what we hope to have continuing into the remainder of this year is some basic camera stuff to try to help all of our members, but especially our new members, refine their skills a little bit so that when the holidays come, we can get some good photos. Alan is our education chair, and he's going to tell you about education.
Does this thing work?
Mr. Button.
This button. I can hold it in?
Yes.
Hello? 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 Doesn't work? No.
It's hard to find.
Hello? No.
Let's try it without it. Editing is a passion of mine, and I'm gonna bore you a little bit. I'm gonna get on my soapbox. You experts probably don't care, but some of you may. I've heard this many times before in the years that's passed. Why are we editing? I never edited when I took film. Why now? Well, my answer to that is you couldn't edit film easily. It was very difficult, and film was a different medium. It was forgiving, much more so than digital is. What I mean is forgiving the responsive film when you've got very bright areas. The sensitivity of the film just dropped off. I don't think it was planned that way. I think it's physics, and it was just lucky. So we really had a problem with film with burning out highlights. But Ansel Adams spent hours and hours in the darkroom, dodging and burning. And the reason for that is the amount of dynamic range that you can capture on either film or digital is far and above what we can show either at home on our screens, on a projector, printing, far and above. Just to give you an idea, a modern day camera can probably capture between 2,000 and 4,000 levels of brightness. A print can handle about 50 or 60. Our computer screens can do a little bit better than that, and this probably isn't anywhere near as good as that. So we must dodge and burn. And that is the first part of editing. That's now you say, well, I can simply set my camera to JPEG. And it's true. And actually today's JPEGs are excellent. But this only works if you have a scene that doesn't have a large dynamic range. For instance, portraits, the subjects up in an area, but when you go out and take a landscape and you have dark shadows and bright skies, you're way over exceeding. And you say, well, I don't want to edit. Well, in our digital world, you don't have a choice. Editing is either done for you in a JPEG, or you take a RAW and you bring it home and edit. But one way or the other, it gets edited. My argument is, do you want the camera to edit for you? You want the camera manufacturer to use his algorithms? And let me show you a simple example on how that doesn't work. I have a scene now with a bright, bland sky, not a cloud in the sky. If I let the camera shoot that sky, it's going to try to capture that bright sky and the dark shadows. And your JPEG will do a pretty good job. Some of the shadows will be so dark you can't see in them. But in reality, there's no detail in that sky. Only you know that. So you would say to yourself when you came home, I don't care about the sky. I can now bring the shadows up and let the sky burn out, because there's no detail there anyway, and I'm probably going to put a new sky in anyway. This you can only do. The camera cannot do this for you. I have been running editing workshops for 7 years probably now. We started with Photoshop and Lightroom, and we were pretty successful, and then Adobe in their wonderful ways decided to make it a subscription, and some of our people were getting a little panicky because Adobe looked like they were going to own you. So I spent one summer looking for an alternative to Lightroom and Photoshop, and it had to work for both of them. And I stumbled upon this all-in-one Photo Raw, 2019. Unfortunately, 2019 was the time when Photo Raw became a grown-up. Before that, it was a clumsy program. But 2019 was so well done that I couldn't find a reason during the summer how I couldn't do all I was wanting to do in Photoshop and Lightroom that I couldn't do in one program, Photo Raw. And it's a program you can buy. With our discount, it runs about $68. Granted, it comes out with a new version every year, and you can opt to take that one or not, or stay with what you have. Sam, for instance, has still got his 2020, right? It's a marvelous program, and for the last 3 years, we have been editing with that, and the last 2 years, because of COVID, we've been online, we've been Zooming. And I know there are people who said, oh, Zoom, I hate Zoom, but it turns out that Zoom is a better way to run a workshop for photo editing, because you're seeing my screen, or I'm seeing your screen, and that's a lot better than projecting on a projector or even a TV set. So it's worked out quite well. I would like to see more people in it, and as I said, we've been on it for about 3 years, but I decided if we have enough interest, I will start a brand new one, starting from scratch. So anybody here or anybody that you know would like to learn Photo Raw, 2021, we have our Monday classes, morning, 10 o'clock to noon, every Monday. Okay, well,
What's the name of the program you're using again? Did you say Photoshop 21?
No, it's called ON1. God only knows what ON stands for. Photo Raw. And the current version is 2022, which, by the way, has automatic sky replacement now and a wonderful no noise, excellent no noise. Anyway, besides that, now I'm going to do a class on camera controls. I actually have had this before. It's called Don't Just Point and Shoot, and it's basically how to use your camera. Advanced how to use your camera. I don't mean putting the batteries in and the SD cards. How to take control over the camera. I'm going to be honest now, most automatic shots are beautiful, and very little has to be done about it. But there are things like depth of field control, use of RAW rather than JPEG, setting the proper exposure, and that is important because even though RAW has a tremendous amount of dynamic range, if you don't get the exposure pretty close to what it should be, you're not going to end up with a very good picture. If you have to drag it in the highlights, you have to drag up the shadows greatly, then the image is not going to look good. And perspective, how to control perspective in a shot. We will have somebody do a beginning camera lecture, and that's really beginning. Putting your card in, putting the batteries in, setting the camera up for just normal photography. Diane has done this in the past, and again, this depends on how much interest there is. If there's no interest, we're not going to have it. I'm going to do a lecture on iPhone photography. I am fascinated by the iPhone 12 and 13 computational photography. That's what it's called now. It's called computational photography. It's not your grandfather's camera. We have an example that we can show here later, right out of the camera. And in fact, we have somebody over here that has a beautiful picture that he took. It's unbelievable what the iPhone 12 and 13 does. For you people that know cameras, Apple is doing what's called Smart HDR. Every time you pull the trigger, it takes, I think, 9 exposure brackets and combines them into a huge 25 megabyte RAW file. And on the other end, for dark images, it does what's called deep fusion where it takes multiple images at the same exposure and does an averaging to decrease noise. So you have both ends, and it is only growing more and more. Yes?
I have the iPhone 11. Is there a great difference between the?
Yeah, the iPhone 11 does the deep diffusion. It'll take care of the dark images and bring out noise, bring down noise. It doesn't have the Smart HDR. They required a large amount of memory. So the current iPhone 12 and 13 minimum memory was 128 gigabytes. They needed that memory to store these huge amount of information every time you click the shutter. I was going to say that in when we do our point and shoot, don't point and shoot, you want to control background and blur, and you do that on the spot. I mean, that's a setting. When you're using an iPhone, you don't have to do that, because that can be done after the fact. Because they actually create a subject mask, which they promise they will give us to do our own editing for, which means that they know what the subject looks like, and they will blur the background. There's also third manufacturer apps for that you can blur any picture, whether it's taken on the iPhone or not. And it does a miraculous job. So we're gonna have that. Now, these I just talked about can be either Zoom, in person. Hopefully when the mask mandate is off, we'll be able to do it in person. Now, I don't know if you realize we have our own room now. We have the room that we share with the stained glass workshop. It was the post office originally, which moved up front, and we have that room. So we have a dedicated room now. We haven't used it because I don't want to go into a room in a mask. But one of these days we will.
So is that where the classes are held, in that room?
Excuse me?
Are the classes held in?
No, right now they're on Zoom.
No, but I mean, when you start having them in person.
Well, the in-person classes will be in that room
Okay.
when I want to do it in person.
Okay.
So all those classes I just said are on Zoom or in person. And in fact, I've already tried it out. We can have a simulcast. I can actually do an in-person workshop while we're on Zoom. So people that don't want to come can still Zoom in on it. Now, in-person portraits, which will be a lecture and a workshop. We had that once before. We have a wonderful professional portrait photographer, Patricia Finn, who doesn't live here anymore, so she's no longer a Camera Club member, but she's in the area, and she said she will come here with a lecture and workshop. Printing, I don't know how many people are interested in learning printing. I know a lot of you do your own printing. If we get enough interest, somehow we will bring a printer into our room and we will show you how to print and how to set it up. And a macro workshop, which we've had many times before. That's got to be in person, obviously. We've had some very successful macro. I think we have people here that are capable of running a macro workshop. In the past, I think we've used somebody from Coachella Valley. But if we do get this running, we will probably buy props. We have room in our room now, a huge closet. We can store a lot of stuff there. So that's about all.
You want to show any of your pictures?
Yeah. While we're here. I watched a video, YouTube video on one actually turning day to night. And this is what I was able to create from here. As you see, the windows are all lit up. There's a nice light up there that wasn't there before. And these are the things we can do with editing. Now, this is not your basic editing. This is what I would call artistic part of editing. This is a picture that was taken up in Canada. Pat Ponce took this picture. I don't know why it lacks contrast. This was a raw image, which is okay because it has all the information that it needs. And with, I bet you, no more than 3 minutes on the new 2022, we get this.
I don't have the,
Oh, yes, you do.
well, there we go.
I mean, within minutes is all it took. We have sky replacement now, which is one click of the mouse and the sky comes in. And the next picture I just wanted, this is an iPhone 12 picture taken at Morro Bay, right out of the camera. And it doesn't do justice on the screen, but the image itself is great. I haven't touched this. I did some work on it. I put some birds up in the sky originally, but essentially, this is a raw image. It was actually JPEG now. So this is what we can get, and we are in our photo editing class now are editing as many iPhone 12 pictures as we are regular pictures. Because a lot of us now, there are at least half of my workshop own a 12 or a 13. And, you know, I'm gonna make a comment right now. I just sold my RX 100 because I have my iPhone 13. And I was so thrilled with the 13, my wife said, "What are you keeping it for? You're not gonna use it anymore." So, that's about all.
Thank you, Alan. I just want to say a few words here on not advanced editing, but beginning stuff. I want to hold my hand up.
Microphone.
This is my new camera. I bought it 2 weeks ago. Cost $300. It's a Nikon Coolplex B500. Easy controls. It's got the exposure settings are, it has 15 or 16 scenes. You can decide what scene, what the conditions are like for what you're taking. Is it day, is it night, is it bright, is it dark? Are there lots of people in it? Is there lots of sky? Has one more setting, which is automatic. In the automatic setting, the camera figures out, looks at the scene when you press it halfway, looks at the scene and decides how to set itself up. Artificial intelligence. Goes a long way these days. My new camera. I've taken 4 pictures. I want to see how good it does, and I'll report back on that. This is my old camera. Nikon I bought in 2007. The body cost $1,800. Lenses were optional at extra cost. This has a range of controls, aperture, shutter, completely manual controls. It also has something called P for program. The program is the interesting part. The sensor in here has 1,006 areas. When you press it halfway, it looks out there and it samples these 1,006 different parts of the thing. And then it compares that to its library. And in its library, the manual says it has several 100,000 images. So the artificial intelligence here goes through those several 100,000 images finds out which is closest to what you're looking at right here, and then uses that to set it. I use that a lot. Point and shoot. This is a great point and shoot camera.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually forgot something. I happened to stumble upon, I think Jerry would appreciate this, I happened to stumble upon something about the future of iPhone iPhone photography. There is a lens now being created by a Harvard group. They actually formed a company. They're nanotechnology lenses. They're flat, and there's no reason why they can't lay on top of our detectors. There's no thickness to them essentially, but they behave like a glass lens. If you understand the world of diffraction, you can understand that you don't really need glass to do diffraction. And they're actually promising lenses that can zoom with this technology. So this article was looking at the fact that there is a possibility in the future that the mobile phones will have full frame detectors, 35mm full frame detectors, and be able to create a lens system that would, that would require a lens the entire iPhone. So we have a unbelievable amount of, and actually Samsung is working with this Harvard group. So I heard that they were already coming out with products that actually use this nano technology in lenses. It's mind-boggling when you read about it.
Thank you, Alan. Let's talk about outings. We already had one outing last week. A bunch, 6 or 8 of us went to Bombay Bay down at the Salton Sea and took some pictures, and I'll show some of those in just a minute. But let's go over our short-term plans here. Next Sunday is the Gay Pride Parade in Palm Springs, and it is a wild event. And there are 1 million people there, and many of them are outrageous. And a bunch of us are going to go over and take some photos, and strongly recommend it. The only downside is there'll be 2 million people there.
Oh my God.
That's November 7th, Sunday. Early in December, we want to, one night, maybe 2 nights, go around Sun City and take pictures of the Christmas decorations, Hanukkah decorations, and the lights that are around. And I don't know if we'll go as a group or kind of individually, but we will publish a map of where the most interesting things we think are. And then December 9th, Gary, our vice president, is organizing a trip to El Paseo. We'll meet at Lakeview, we'll go to El Paseo, and we'll take pictures of their holiday decorations. Should be fun. Then after those trips, at our meetings afterward, we'll show lots of those pictures of what happened there. I'll show you some now of the Bombay Beach trip. Bombay Beach.
States.
David, you were on this trip?
I was,
Would you like to talk about the different pictures and the different places that were there?
I wish Gary was here
because he was the one who took us around, so I really don't know the area that well.
I don't either, and I was there, but I was
I
not. Yes.
didn't go on it, but Terry and I had gone before. No, before. One thing.
There's that tiny little button down there.
Bugby Beach is about an hour, maybe a tad over an hour from here. It's a town that's basically kind of wound down. There are not a lot of people there anymore. But the people that are there are craftsmen, and they are people that kind of dabble in different types of art forms. And so you see a lot of displays like this one, and they're located throughout the town. They also have displays out in the water there in the Salt City. Go to the next one. Want to move to the next one? Okay. There are a number of buildings out there that are kind of dilapidated, and a lot of graffiti on them. And these buildings, you can take pictures from the outside, obviously, but you can also go inside of them, and they have some interesting displays as well. Again, kind of artsy sort of motifs. Next one. This picture is on the side of a building, another example of graffiti. It's huge. The painting that they've done here. But it's pretty interesting art. Next. It's out in the water, a geographic sculpture. There are, I'd say, probably 4 or 5 different sculptures that are out in the water. Some big, some small, but pretty neat. Next one. A concrete display that was put together, sculpture, star. There are 3 or 4 of these types of displays right along the shoreline. You can drive up on this beach, but you have to be pretty careful because it does have spots where you can get stuck. So the best thing is to drive about halfway out on the beach and then walk the rest of the way in. But there are a number of interesting things out on the beach. From previous sculptures they've had there, or old walls that have got graffiti on them, and what have you. Next one. It's just a door frame that just looks out on the beach. Swing out there. Next. Another angle. This is a house that has a plastic sort of material that's on the side. It's sort of like saran wrap, but real thick. And it does interesting reflections and colors. This one's pretty washed out, but they've got a lot of, if you try it at another angle and a little earlier in the day, you get pinks and reds and yellows, and it reflects back at you. But it's a whole house. This is on the side of the house. Gary just has this small portion. That's another display on the beach somebody's put up. You've seen this one earlier, just the things in the windows. Next one. That one I don't know anything about. Looks like it's on the top of a building.
It is.
It's Marilyn Monroe's brother.
Okay. Next one. Don't know much about this one. Inside, as I was saying, you can go inside of these buildings, and they've got things that are set up, these brushes. It's just another angle. But they also have one that's got a mummy lying on a table. That's kind of strange in one of them. Keep going. Just a picture. Looks to me like somebody took this picture and then used a filter on it to create it.
That's the last one.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, thank you, Jim. An interesting place down there, lots of really strange stuff. And it's much bigger than I expected it would be.
It didn't cost anything.
Huh?
It didn't cost anything to go.
And it didn't cost anything to go.
Yes.
And it was a little over an hour drive down and an hour drive back. So it was fun. Socials. Jane started something, 10 months ago or something, I guess. And I don't quite remember the name she called it by. But once a month, we would have a Zoom meeting, and she would put out a topic.
Virtual exhibitions.
Virtual exhibition. She would put out a theme 3 weeks ahead of time, say, and then we would all look for pictures, new pictures, old pictures, on that theme. And then at our Zoom on Tuesday, it was always on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, each of us would show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 photos that we had taken or we had found in our archive.
Push the button.
And it was, come on. Hello, 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 hello. And it was a lot of fun. We did it every month, and each month it was a different theme. And twice, she called it a scavenger hunt. And she would put out, the first time, I think it was 30 different topics. And some of us took 30 different pictures, and some of us took 3 pictures, 4 pictures. But it was a whole lot of fun. The second time, there was like 12 topics, and that was challenging also. We have those pictures around someplace, and maybe we'll get them on the website or published someplace. We plan to continue that, as far as I know, into the future. And the theme for the current month, and somewhere November 10th is our next Zoom. And on November 10th, the topics are close-ups and or macros. So Jane will send out an announcement the week before saying when and where and what the entry code is for the Zoom. And it's a lot of fun. Those of us who do it like it a lot and keep coming back, and we hope that more and more people will join us.
It's November 16th, the third Tuesday.
Okay? What's November 10th?
The Wednesday.
Well, it's the 16th then. Sounds right.
Okay.
But there will be an announcement. Joan, our publicity chair, will put out an announcement. And we end up the season with our annual party. Kind of a dinner, social event. Announce the photographer of the year and show pictures from all of our activities during the entire year. Hopefully, by then, we won't have masks, we'll be able to congregate. I'll be able to see what your entire face looks like. That's, what we have planned for the year.
I have a question.
Yeah, questions and discussion. If anybody's got a question or a comment.
I'm considering the possibility of expanding one of those into a anything goes Zoom meeting once a month or twice a month, where anything photography goes, whether you have camera questions, if you wanna talk about your new camera, you want editing, but anything goes kind of thing. We kind of get people together. If you want, you can just sit there and listen. And it'll go as long as people have something to say. If you are interested in it, let us know. Well, everybody's not here, so we're gonna, Jane will have to send something out to the entire.
Anybody have questions, comments?
I'll send you an invitation. Next meeting.
Let's all go home and drink.